Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast, episode 9. We're 3/4 of the way to this magical 12th episode that we keep referencing. The I actually kept up with my podcast point that I like to refer to it as. How are you doing, Aidan? We've had a lot of hockey since then, and our stress levels are all down a little bit lower. I'd love to hear how you're doing, bro.
I've had Heave Away stuck in my head since for the last 3 full days. It's not a song that I would have been particularly drawn to before the tournament and before, the connotation with this team, but it's a happy song now. And I had a Bulldogs game on Friday, and when I went down into the tunnel to pull out the goalie for a post-game interview, I could hear them blasting it in the room after their win. So it's taken over the hockey world, and I've listened to it a couple of times already today. Just puts me in a good mood, and I think, if you're a Canadian hockey fan, no reason not to be in a good mood this week, hey?
First of all, I love that. Absolute banger. And I'm going to be listening to that, blasting it, in fact, on my drive to Whistler later tonight. And because the kid's going to go have some fun. And yeah, it's been a good time to be a Canadian hockey fan, Aidan. We got what is that, 2 World Junior golds in the last few months. That's pretty freaking hype. I like that. It's a good feeling. It reinvigorated my want/need to drop too much money on an official World Junior World Junior jersey. I really want one. I just love that jersey design. It's gotta be something I wear and own. Every year the player I want changes. I'm kind of torn right now. I'm thinking either a Joshua Waugh or maybe a Dylan Guenther. I think that would be pretty nifty.
Yeah, the last Canada jersey I got would have been the 2015 one. I got a blank one where it was like Canada diagonally downwards across the chest. The one that they wore when they won gold in Montreal and Toronto. I would get Bedard if I was getting one, because that's one that, you're not going to forget. Like, obviously, you're not going to forget Dylan Guenther with the 2-goal gold medal game performance and the golden goal, but you're not like getting a Bedard one. You're obviously not going to forget this record-breaking tournament he had. Dylan Guenther, you said it, 2 World Junior goals in the span of a few months, 2 World Junior golden goals for Canada in the span of 2 months as well. I was having deja vu with the gold medal game, exactly the same way the Canada-Finland one went in the 2022 tournament, 2-0 lead that fell apart in the third period into overtime. The same thing happened with the Czechia game, and no Mason McTavish-esque goal line save needed against Czechia in overtime, but it was still a roller coaster, and just it was as much a sigh of relief as elation when Guenther put that puck in the back of the net for me in overtime.
Oh yeah. I was at work, and I had my yearly week and a half long subscription to TSN so I can actually watch it, because I don't have cable, because I'm in my 20s. Who has cable?
Not me.
Yeah, not you. You definitely don't have cable. And then I was watching along, and I'm doing my best to stay productive, right? Like I'm trying to get some work done. It was actually a pretty busy news day. And I'm writing away, and I think I almost mastered having my eyes go different directions, so I could have one looking at the little screen and the other one watching my writing. And I feel pretty damn proud of myself for managing to get work done while that was on, because it was almost a foregone conclusion that I wouldn't, because that game was a bit of a heater. Like, it was, all right, we got a couple. Oh, yeah, everyone in the newsroom was talking. Oh, yeah, it looks like we got to start getting the stories ready. It looks like Canada might win a gold. And then it's like, oh, no, it's 2-1. Oh, no, it's 2-2. And in Czechia fashion, the entire tournament, that team just does not go away. They do not go away at all. There's so much sneaky talent on that roster. They all worked so hard, and they made a damn good game of it. It would have been cool. It would have been easy if they just won 2-0. Sweet, whatever. Awesome. Gold medal in the bank. But they made a game of it. We got to see some OT. We got some action, and they put us on the edge of our seats a bit. Love the celebration. The thing going viral the most is Connor Bedard being like, I won't talk about myself. And, we're in a day and age where we've got a couple of funny showboaty personalities in the NHL now, a la Trevor Zegras, Jack Hughes, guys who, like, yeah, they're charismatic, but they're not afraid to pump their own tires a bit. And I think it's good for the game. But then you get the stalwart, stoic, whatever Viking-esque word you want to use, that I kind of want to use to describe Bedard's personality. And he's just, no, I don't want to talk about myself. It's good for the team. Team showed up. Country on our backs. We did it. Sweet. Mic drop. See you later.
I loved it. Loved it. One of the best post-game interviews I've ever seen. You know, that's somebody you want on your team. That's somebody you want with a C on their chest for your team. That's somebody that's going to lead you to great things, right? Like, and you know, we've heard stories out of the NHL draft and NHL draft interviews where one of the ones that comes to mind right off the top of my head was the Toronto Maple Leafs interviewing Nail Yakupov in 2012.
I knew you were going to say that.
Brian Burke said he almost punched Nail Yakupov in the face during that draft interview in 2012 and said even if Yakupov, who was the consensus #1 pick, fell to Toronto at 5, there was no way that Burke was going to take him. To me, Connor Bedard's the other side of the coin. This is who you want as the face of your franchise. You know, hockey's a team sport, and more so than almost any other team sport, you need to be a team, right? Like all the talent in the world does nothing if that dressing room isn't tight knit and if the players aren't playing for each other. And I think Connor Bedard has, you know, just even in that interview and not just in the interview, obviously, but throughout the tournament, his demeanor, it's been, I'm doing everything I'm doing, all these goals, all these points, you know, you could tell it was going to mean literally nothing to him if he didn't come away with a gold medal. And I think that's, you know, that makes him all the more alluring to a team that's going to pick him up. You know, that's how you should be, personally, my opinion. You know, I'm not discounting, you know, the big personalities, but at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, that's the most valuable thing you can have in a dressing room. And I'm very, very happy that the future face of Canadian hockey has that personality.
Yeah, and I am in no way discounting those personalities either. I've met Jack Hughes. Awesome dude. Really nice guy. Guy you want to sit there and have a quick chat, have a quick BS with. Cool guy. I am in no way discounting those either. You reminded me that I have to remind the listeners of that. That's important. But yeah, you're right. That is the kind of personality that you want to have on your squad. That's the kind of personality that lifts everyone up without being. You don't have to speak loudly if that's how you act. Your actions are speaking louder than words in more ways than one. And I know me and lots of friends had this conversation. I think we touched on it. There was all of this. Is Bedard the best World Junior player ever? And yes, I know he doesn't have the all-time points record. That's still Peter Forsberg's. That's probably never going to be touched. And but the question was, is he the greatest World Junior player ever? And he couldn't have been without that gold. They lost in the quarters, the semis, the finals, whatever. If he didn't have that gold, if it was a bronze, if it was a silver, you can't be the best World Junior player of all time if you don't have 2 golds. That's how I feel. I stand by that. And he has those 2 golds.
And what's crazy to think is that, you know, like, and obviously it's not going to happen. There's almost no scenario where he plays in another 1 World Junior, let alone 2. But he has 2 goals before he even got drafted, so he could theoretically finish his career having played in 4 tournaments. And again, like it's not going to happen, and it's a little bit disappointing, obviously, that you know he's not going to be able to play in that tournament, but it's going to be because he's ripping up the NHL, right? There's no scenario where we see Connor Bedard in this tournament 1, let alone 2 more times. But I think that has to go into it too. Like we've seen many players win like multiple gold medals, and they did so after their draft year. They did so because it was a lockout year, right? And that's awesome. But for Bedard to do all this and not even have been drafted yet, it's a whole other perspective and a whole other piece that would strengthen the argument that he is one of the, if not the greatest player in the history of this tournament.
Damn right. And you know, I'll stand by what you said. I would bet every dollar I make the rest of my life against $25 that he does not play in another World Juniors. I would do it. And now that I said that, watch a lockout or something pop out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that it's gonna be one of those unnatural anomalies. Like obviously, in 2021, that tournament we saw a bunch of guys that could have or would have been in the NHL playing the tournament because the NHL wasn't happening, right? You had the COVID pause. And so, it would take something like that to even open the door for Bedard to play in another tournament. And I think I know, James, you and I have never had this conversation. And I heard
Wait, a
somebody,
hockey conversation we've never had?
I don't think so.
What is
Um,
this?
well, I was gonna say, so I heard somebody the other day. I don't remember who it was. It was while I was watching either a World Junior broadcast or a Sports Center broadcast after the fact, and they kind of said something along the lines of, "Oh, it's crazy to see Connor Bedard doing this in a best on best tournament for his age group." And I'm not gonna like say that saying that is flawed, but it truly isn't a best on best tournament for the age group because you have 18 to 19-year-olds playing in the NHL that are denied the chance to go, right? If this was a best on best tournament, Slovakia would have had Juraj Slajkovský on the roster, even just a small example, right? Every year you have players like Mason McTavish, for instance, would be playing for Canada had this been a best on best. And I don't think we'll ever be able to see the World Juniors as best on best. Previously, when I was a little bit younger, I'd always thought, why not? Why not? Why not give NHL players all a 10 days off around the holidays? Every team gets a 1 week break anyways. So why not partner with a double IIHF, give all the NHL teams 10 days off, and then send all the players to the World Juniors? And, kind of as the tournaments progress, there's been things that I've noticed that would stand in the way of that. Obviously, one of them is the NHL with either the IOC or the double IHF. Those negotiations and those talks are always are not always advantageous, and a common ground isn't always reached when those two parties meet up. The other argument against that to me is it would put more distance between the top and the bottom teams in the tournaments, and I think you see the teams at the bottom of that spectrum definitely show up, get blown out, and it's not good for the sport in those countries. And at the end of the day, you want the Germany, the Austria, and the Latvia. You want their participation in this tournament to help hockey in that country. And I don't know if it does that if you are seeing them get blown out 17 to 20 to nothing every game they play, because Canada goes into this tournament with Mason McTavish, Connor Bedard, right? Like that kind of roster. And like imagine Bedard as a 19-year-old in this tournament, right? Like that, what he breaks Forsberg's record, right? Like easy. He breaks every record if he's playing in this tournament as a 19-year-old. So, and I just wanted your opinion on it because it's something that I've kind of had my mindset shift on. And more so than anything else, I've kind of landed on the fact that it's just not realistic that that's ever going to happen.
I'm going to be boring here. I agree. It'll never happen. And one of the reasons I cite is money. NHL players are assets to their team that is owned by a business owner. They are a asset. They are, as much as they are human beings that we love and appreciate, there's something that the team owns, and a team doesn't want to be like, oh, here, go play with my toy that you might break. It sounds terrible, but like, you think the Blackhawks are stoked about what happened with Kirby Dach? You think the Islanders were stoked about Tavares going to the Olympics and getting injured and losing him when they probably would have been a playoff team that year? It's tough. It's tough. If we lived in a perfect world, it happens. The World Juniors would always happen when the NHL is not in season. Same with the Olympics. But we don't live in a perfect world, so it is what it is. That's something I feel like I've gotten over quite a while ago. I had the same thought when I was younger. Like, show me all the best. I want to see it. And there were times that we did get to see it when NHL was in lockout. That was pretty cool. But
yeah, and I think it was one of those times, 2021 for me, that really showed me that, because at the end of the day, like, Canada lost to the States in the gold medal game, but the previous 6 games weren't contests, any of them, right? None of them. You didn't have this quarterfinal against Slovakia. That was one of the most thrilling games I can remember watching at this tournament, right? You don't have the dramatic back and forth that ends in a Canadian overtime win, right? They would have walked over Slovakia in 2021 if they met them in the quarterfinals, right? So at the end of the day, I think it's better this way for the tournament. I think it's better this way for everybody involved. It's just obviously it's just obviously a little bit disheartening to know that we've watched Connor Bedard in his last game in this tournament. But what a way to go out anyhow.
What a way to go out, and I'll remember that celebration for a while. And I want to talk about Shaner, Mr. Shane Wright, and that's a good segue to the NHL. I know you prepped for this one. Let's hear what you got to say about Shaner and Brandt Clarke.
Yeah, so I'm starting to think, and you again, you can correct me if you think I'm wrong. I'm starting to think this is going to be a blueprint that NHL teams are going to follow. So Shane Wright and Brandt Clarke both did the exact same thing at the beginning of this season. Their NHL teams, and sorry, just to recap, again, if you're listening to this podcast, you're not aware of this rule. An NHL team can have a player that came from the CHL for 9 games. They can play them in 9 NHL games. If they play a 10th NHL game, they burn the first year of their entry-level contract. If they only play in 9, the team can send them back to junior hockey, the OHL, WHL, QMJHL, without them burning that year. Something that we saw this year that I had never remembered seeing before is the use of the conditioning stint rule kind of being, and I don't want to say exploited because it wasn't like it was cheated. It was just kind of a clever way to use the rule for Brandt Clarke and Shane Wright. So the conditioning stint rule means that if a player sits out 5 consecutive games in the NHL for any reason, they can be sent to the AHL on a conditioning stint. And that conditioning stint is 2 weeks. So for both Brandt Clarke and Shane Wright, they sat out 5 consecutive NHL games. They play 2 weeks in the AHL. So both of them in this first half of the season played 9 NHL games and a handful of AHL games, and then were sent to the World Juniors. So that gives their team until January of the season to decide if they want to keep the player for the whole season or send them back to junior. And at that point, sending them back to junior, they're not burning a year of their entry level contract that way. So they still get, I think Shane Wright played 13 or 14 professional games in the NHL or AHL level. He gets that experience with a big club, both with obviously the Seattle Kraken and the Coachella Valley Firebirds. He gets to go play at the World Juniors.
Awesome name, awesome jerseys. We like the Coachella Valley Firebirds.
Yeah, that's one of the better ones in minor pro. And he captains a World Junior team to gold. And now Shane Wright has been assigned back to the Ontario Hockey League. So again, like it's a little bit of, I don't know if you want to call it a workaround to the rule, because obviously, James, the other thing too is there's still the CHL agreement in place between them and the NHL, where if a player came from the CHL and is still eligible to return to the CHL, they actually can't be assigned to an AHL roster full time. It's a way that the CHL, is still bringing these talented players back. It's basically the CHL saying, if they're not in the NHL, we want them here. And because the CHL is obviously such probably the most common provider of NHL talent, the NHL is going to agree to that. Yeah. Anyways, so James, question being 9 games, maybe a conditioning stint, World Juniors, and then start of January back in junior. Is that something you kind of see NHL teams maybe pursuing in the future? Maybe this is the blueprint to something that's going to be more and more common.
So you've used that word blueprint again, and that kind of insinuates used all the time. Like, this is the cookie cutter way that let's do this. I don't think it's ever going to be that, but I think you'll see more teams give that a chance. More teams be like, you know what, let's give this guy a crack earlier on in the year. We'll see how it goes. Why not? Let's give it a try. It's going to be more common. It's not going to be like, oh, wow, this happened to 2 guys. This is crazy. It'll pop up, but I still think that those 2 are very independent variables. Am I using that properly? Like they're random examples. They're specific cases. That you've got Wyatt Johnstons that are just killing it, and you've got other guys that just don't make the team out of camp. Or you got guys that just get sent down after the 9 games or before the 9 games. It was a very specific situation thing, so I won't say it's ever going to be a blueprint per se, but teams are going to be more willing to do something like that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think you're always going to see exactly what you said. Guys that are, eligible to go back to the CHL are going to make the NHL out of camp, and guys are not going to make it out of camp and be sent straight to junior right away. It's just, it's the first time I really remember seeing it done so blatantly, like, oh, we're going to drag this out so that he doesn't lose a year of his entry level. Oh, let's send him to the AHL so he still gets games in, yada, yada, yada. I don't know if it's not cheating, right? It's definitely a little bit exploiting a couple rules. But the reason that I'm not like opposed to it is because the NHL CHL rule is pretty restrictive to begin with, and I think this is just a way that you allow for more flexibility, which is kind of what I think should happen, is just a little bit more flexibility. So yeah, I don't see it as a negative. We'll obviously see this time next year if we're still talking about this, if we're still saying, oh, whoever it fits the bill, right? Like and the interesting thing is, if you look at the top of the 2023 draft, you look at the top 5 picks, only one of them is a CHL player. So it's not going to be like a high profile case of this next year with one of the top 5 picks in the draft, because it's only Connor Bedard, and wherever he goes, he's going to play next year. You've got Fantilli playing in the NCAA. You've got Leo Carlson, Matvey Michkov, and Edward Shala, who are all playing overseas professionally in Europe. So, of those 5, only Bedard would need to do this the way that Shane Wright needed to do this. So, it's definitely something that NHL teams are now going to have in their back pocket. But yeah, I think you're right that this isn't going to be like, oh, we're not going to see 8 of the top 10 picks in the next draft and go through this next season, right?
Definitely. And we've had fun with our World Junior talk. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a hell of a in-season season, as it always is. I've had a good time with it. And now let's really focus on NHL stuff. We're not going to go that far into it. We're just going to talk about a couple of European players putting together stellar seasons, and specifically a couple great performances. I know you want to talk about Juuse Saros and that monster effort. 64 freaking saves. Let's go. What do you got to say?
Yeah, I mean, we're wrapping up World Juniors, and I'm going to start talking about this guy that really I remember watching at the World Juniors in 2014. I remember him carrying Finland to gold, and it never really worked out for him in Nashville at the beginning of his career. He was playing second fiddle to Pekka Rinne for a while, did get into some Stanley Cup final games in 2017, but in the last couple of years, this guy has really established himself, not only as a bona fide top-end starter, but an elite goalie in the league. And I genuinely think this is just a continuation of this guy's career. We see goalies sometimes, and the development for goalies is more non-linear than it is for skaters. And you see, more so than almost any other position, you see star goalies have roller coaster stretches and even roller coaster seasons, roller coaster, like a span of 5 years where it's amazing, then a downturn, then an upturn. You think Matt Murray with the Pittsburgh Penguins in the playoffs, even somebody like Jordan Binnington with the St. Louis Blues, his career has been nothing but a roller coaster. But Juuse Saros is now continuing to string together just performance after performance after performance. And I wanted to ask you, James, like, what should Nashville's plan be? What should the Predators be doing here? Because at the end of the day, you've got so many great talents on the roster, but to me, they're still far from contention.
Well, the old phrase, you get in the dance, you never know what might happen. So I think they're going to be one of those squads that, you just keep icing a competitive team. You see if a little talent and hard work might be able to get you far, and some efforts from star players. Like, you have Roman Josi, you have Juuse Saros, you have Philip Forsberg, Duchesne's great complimentary piece, Jeannot's a solid piece. No one can ever fault the compete level of Ryan McDonough. Like, Ekholm exists. Like, you have a lot of solid guys. And, I'd like to see a little bit more in the pipeline to see some sustained success going into the future. That's something they kind of need. Even just like some more B-level prospects, guys that they can develop and keep working into the system so that they don't have to keep paying mid-tier contracts for their depth. They can have some entry-level deals filling out the roster, because they've got a couple hefty price tags. That's a fact. And yeah, I think they're going to stay competitive. The fans love that team. That is an awesome city. Like, that's on my bucket list to see a hockey game there. And I think they're going to stand pat and just kind of keep rolling with it. They were a very good team when they made their run to the finals, but they weren't a favorite. Like, they were a couple games away from a Stanley Cup, and they weren't a favorite by any means.
They were the 8th seed that year. They swept the first place Blackhawks. It was kind of funny that you brought up wanting to see more in the pipeline. I actually was going to say, I think Nashville's youth is kind of on the more underrated side. Like, when you think Predators, you don't think like this incredible pipeline of young players that's going to come supplement the old guys. But I was, even before he got drafted, I was a huge fan of Joakim Kemell. I was really hoping Vancouver would take him at 50, and we're not in that draft. It was 2021, and obviously, or sorry, 2022, and obviously we haven't seen what Jonathan Lekari-Maki is going to be yet, so it's hard to say already, like, oh, they should have taken Kemell. But I really liked him at every level I've seen this guy play. And we talked about Juuse Saros kind of being the heir to Pekka Rinne's throne and having to play second fiddle to Rinne for a while. Well, that's exactly what's going to happen with Yaroslav Askarov. He's going to step in and he's going to have to kind of be in Saros' shadow for a while. But you've got one of the best goaltending prospects in the world still coming up. I know Askarov is in the AHL this year. He's having a solid season so far. But yeah, so to me, you've also got youngster Phil Tomasino on that roster as well. I just think for Nashville, it's very weird because they're in the middle ground. They've got superstar players that can carry a strong team, and they've got a decent prospect pipeline. So they're at a crossroads because they, like staying the course to me for Nashville is going to lead to that 7th to 10th place in the conference finish, that mediocrity. You become a buyer and you might mortgage your future for contention that isn't going to bear fruit, or you might give up this very strong group to build for the future. And I really, it's 3 options, and I couldn't even tell you what I think the best one for this franchise is.
I have no idea either. I think just continuing to ice a competitive team and keeping that fan base active, I think, is probably the best option. And as hockey nerds, we don't like that. We want to see the chaos. We want to see the teardown. We want to see the build up. We don't want to see middle. But the fact of the matter is, hockey is a business. You got to keep fans in the stands. You got to keep people interested. You have to keep a team that's fun to watch. And they've done that. Some people might say they're a bit boring, but I think they've got a pretty cool roster. I don't mind them at all. And with that, I'm going to extend to the James is biased portion of the podcast. Sure. And we don't do this very much. We recognize your Canucks bias pretty often. And you always bring it up. We don't talk about our favorite teams because otherwise we'd be here for hours. And I need to talk about Mikko Rantanen. The Avs have been battered, bruised, tired, hurt. There's always like at least 3 key contributors out of the lineup this entire season. Like, it's just nonstop. Right now, it is Gabriel Landeskog, Valerie Nichushkin, Bowen Byram, Josh Manson, backup goaltender Pavel Francouz, plus an array of depth guys. There's just injuries nonstop. Nathan McKinnon was just out as well. Like, he's back. What a goal. What a goal he scored against the Oilers. Like, awesome. Thank you, Nate Dogg. But there's one guy who's really stepped it up through all this. A lot of guys have stepped it up, but Mikko Rantanen has just been on another level. And my little sidebar, my sporting app of choice is The Score, and I stand by them being the best sports app. TSN is kind of dated, and I think they need to step it up a bit. The Sportsnet app is nice if you want to look at all the media, but I prefer the Score app. I think they do a great job of it. And they put out a lot of solid articles. They do a lot of award rankings. And they had Mikko Rantanen sitting at number 2 in their, at this point, Hart Trophy ranking. And I read that and I went, oh, cool, someone's watching. I wasn't surprised. I wasn't pissed that it didn't happen before. I was just like, nifty, someone's watching. And with Colorado being the defending Stanley Cup champs, I'm surprised I even have to think that. But Mikko Rantanen has just been on another level. He's leading the NHL in even strength goals. Like, considering how effective Colorado's power play is, even with star players out, that's very surprising. Because he's one of the trigger men on that power play for sure. And he's just been dominant. He's leading all forwards in average ice time with like around 25 minutes. That's ridiculous. That's nuts. A 25-minute forward. How are you? But yeah, it's been pretty cool watching him play during this stretch. Like, you always have to have that next man up mentality on contending teams. You've seen it with Tampa Bay when they have a guy like Nikita Kucherov out long term. You saw Braden Point really develop during that span. Mikko Rantanen is already a developed, well-known star in this league who I've always said doesn't really get enough credit, but that's reasonably so. He's like the 3rd most relevant guy on his team. Like, it's a fact. But he has just been a stud during all this. And that's the kind of thing that, as a fan, no matter what team you're a fan of, when your second or third most important player does that, when your top guy is out, that's encouraging. That's like, okay, we've got a culture here. We've got a will to win here. We have a work ethic here. It's really cool to see, man. I love what Mikko's developed into. The guy's got bite. Like, he is a mean dude. He is strong. He gets pissed off. And he's got so much talent, deceptive shot, rocket of a shot when he wants it to be. And like, with that big lanky frame, he's still an incredible skater. So yeah, I've got a lot to say about Mikko Rantanen, but I just have to say, like, I saw that article and saw him ranked there and all of the reasons they had him ranked. And I was just happy to see some recognition.
I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you think there are 5 wingers in the NHL right now that are above Mikko Rantanen?
It's hard. He's got to be like in that like 4 to 7 range.
Yeah, I had 6 for me.
Okay.
There's 6 wingers that are in like tier A. And those 6 right now: David Pastrnak, Jason Robertson, Kirill Kaprizov, Nikita Kucherov, Mitch Marner, and Mikko Rantanen make up that tier 1 of wingers. I've been such a big Rantanen fan since day one, man. Like, 2015 draft was stacked, and he quietly might be a top 5 player in that draft as well. Like, he is the real deal when it comes to playing wing. And you're saying 25-minute forward. It's not even just 25-minute forward, 25-minute winger, right? Like, you don't even see that often, because, you know, on the penalty kill, it's more often the centers. But it's been fun to watch him anytime I've had the opportunity this season. And you know, for the Colorado Avalanche, for him to almost kind of be your third best player really shows you how good the high-end talent on that team is. And, you know, for the Avs, it's been such a hard season, but, you know, I think Colorado is going to fit the bill, like, get in the playoffs and anything can happen. If they get in as the
make it to the dance.
Yeah, if they get in as the second wildcard team, I'm not betting against them going all the way again. I think they might need a second line center. I like Alex Newhook. Don't know if he's there yet, but
he's not there yet.
I think there's a cough Bo Horvat for Bowen Byram trade that, you know, I'd certainly take.
I think my personal playoff song for the Avs that's gonna get me pumped up for every game is gonna be Van Halen, "Dance the Night Away." That's the one I'm going with. And, you know, you brought up those players that are probably the top wingers. And I don't want to have a whole debate about this because as we said earlier, or maybe we mentioned it earlier, I am a little bit short on time here, and I'm doing my best not to rush it through the pod because I love doing this. But is Kyle Connor not in that tier?
I don't think so. Kyle Connor, like, if you're talking who's the best goal scorers in the NHL, Kyle Connor's a tier 1 player, 100%. You know, the thing with Robertson, the thing with Kaprizov, the thing with Rantanen, Marner, everybody in that tier 1. The only player that I said in that tier A that I think kind of fits the Kyle Connor bill is David Pastrnak. But even then, Pastrnak, I think, is a better playmaker than Connor. My beef with Connor is just how one-dimensional he is. But when you're that good at doing that one thing, it's not necessarily a problem. But Kucherov and Marner, Kaprizov, Robertson, Pastrnak, even a Brad Marchand has a more well-rounded game than somebody like Kyle Connor. Connor can put up 50 goals easily, but you know what? Chris Kreider scored 50 goals last year, and he's nowhere sniffing that tier 1 to me.
The other 2 guys I was going to mention were Marchand, of course, who I think he's in there, and 3 actually, and Ovi. I have to mention him, even though, you know, he's not in his like random lose a bunch of weight, skate like the wind years where he just changes it up or something like that. But dude, he's Ovi. He's more defensively sound in his older age than he was in his high flying younger years. And so I think when you throw in that well-rounded package, I think he's there. I think you put him in that tier for sure. And I am a bit of an Ovi fanboy, so I am biased, but I don't think I'm too biased on that. And then the other one I want to mention, super, super controversial. I'm so high on Matthew Tkachuk. I think Matthew Tkachuk's right there too.
The one that I struggle not to, just because I'm a huge fan of him, is Artemi Panarin.
Yeah, and him.
Yeah, I love Panarin. I've loved him since day one as well. that that's kind of why I love Andrei Kuzmenko so much, is just how he reminds me in so many ways of Artemi Panarin. So
when you say Panarin, the first thing that comes to my mind is difference maker.
Oh, for sure. Without a doubt. And he can kind of play any role you throw him into, right? When he was in Chicago, he was the finisher. He was the finisher on that line with Patrick Kane, and he did that really well. In Columbus, he was everything. And with the Rangers, he's kind of been more of the playmaker. And I think everything he can do definitely elevates him to kind of close to that tier. That's kind of all we had.
No, hold on. One more note on Mikko Rantanen before we run away from it.
Okay, go.
You bring up the second line center thing. How much do you watch the Avs?
Enough to know that Rantanen's played a lot of center this year.
Yeah, damn right he has.
Yeah, and enough to know.
With our healthy top six wingers, do we need a center? If our centers are Rantanen and McKinnon, do we?
Yeah, that's it. Only Joe Sakic's opinion on that matters, I think, right? And
Jared Bednar.
Jared Bednar, but Sakic, I've never seen Sakic lose a trade, so we'll defer the judgment to him, and obviously, like signing Lehkonen and how good Valerian Nichushkin's been, not only this season when he's been healthy enough to play, but also last year. I don't disagree with you. And watching Rantanen play center this year just kind of reaffirms how good at everything he is, right? So yeah, and you know what? Alex Newhook to me is going to be that guy. He's going to be that.
I sure hope so.
That 2C. He's not going to be a second line center and be the kind of second line center that Leon Draisaitl is in Edmonton. He's not going to be like, it's he could be the first line center. He's more of a middle six forward to me than a top six forward, but you put two very capable wingers beside him. He has the ability.
Gabriel Landeskog.
Totally. He would be an awesome third to that line to me. He just needs a little bit more development.
And the team needs to be healthy.
Exactly. Yeah, that too. So I wanted to, again, sort of put you on the spot, ask you to kind of give me between 1 and 3 hopes. So we are obviously in a new year. This is technically our second episode of 2023. So, in the spirit of resolutions, in the spirit of looking ahead to a new year, I have 3 myself. So anywhere between 1 and 3 hopes you have for what this year in hockey will bring.
Okay, I've got 3. Yeah, that's
okay.
Easy. That's easy.
Let's hear 'em.
Okay. I want a Colorado Vegas playoff series.
That's fair.
I want to see 2 players in the NHL get 60 plus goals.
Okay.
And if Tage Thompson has anything to do with it, that might happen. And number 3, I want to see an absolute all-timer of a Cinderella story, whether that's a team that barely makes it to the playoffs that probably shouldn't go on a deep run, whether that's a Tage Thompson-esque thing where a player starts next season on an absolute tear or steps it up in the playoffs out of nowhere. I want to see a real Cinderella story, because that's why I love sports, and that's why I got so into hockey, is because I love the storylines. So I really want to see one of those, because I find those storylines are those are the things that make people fall in love with the sport. That's how you turn a buddy of yours that's a fringe fan into an absolute diehard nerd.
Totally. 3 really good answers. If I go for me, number 1, I like yours because you had a 1 specifically Colorado and 2 more general ones. I've got 1 specifically Vancouver, 1 and 2 more general ones. No matter what happens to the Vancouver Canucks in this offseason, I desperately want them to lock up Andrei Kuzmenko to if not a max contract, just even like more than a 3-year contract. I want this guy to stay in this town. I love him. I love his game. He's been a breath of fresh air, his energy, his vibe, everything. So I want him to get done. Number 2, I'd like a solid commitment on the part of the NHL to say we are doing a best on best international tournament in this month and this year. It's happening. We're planning for it. We're building to it. Period. End of story. Signed, sealed, delivered.
I would have said that, but I just have no hope. They've picked me up and thrown me in the dirt too many times.
I don't disagree with that. I think, I think that's a little of the 3 things I have here. That's the one I'm actually least confident in happening. It's just, call it wishful thinking. I just, Yeah.
You're confident Kuzmenko's signing a long-term deal? I think he's signing for like a year or two and then bouncing.
More so than I'm more so confident in that than the best on best. But I think the allure of saying to him, you are literally going to be stapled to Elias Pettersson's hip for as long as you sign this contract, will be alluring to him, right? Like, and
Right.
and the way Pettersson's playing, like, I don't know what the ceiling is for those two guys.
I'm on board with that.
And then number 3 for me is some sort of a definitive resolution to the 2018 World Junior Canadian team sexual assault case. It's right before the tournament, December 19th. The London police filed with the Ontario Court of Justice that they have, quote, reasonable grounds to believe 5 members of the 2018 World Junior team were involved in the sexual assault of a woman. I don't know, James. I really hope you agree with me, because I'm pretty hardline on this stance. I don't want those 5. I don't think those 5 players should be playing in the NHL anymore. Period. Once we know who those players are, we saw the NHL do it with Mitchell Miller, where they established a precedent that it's not just how good of a player you are that will get you in the NHL, it's how good of a person you are. And I just think that, once there's obviously evidence against whoever these 5 players are, I don't want to see them playing in the NHL anymore. And I think, just for the sake of everybody involved, including the victim that's been negatively affected by it, I want there to be a final answer, a resolution, and then I want, obviously, for everybody who's been negatively affected, I want the healing process to begin, and we can move past it. But obviously, moving past it has to come with justice for the people who did that. And yeah, that's my hope for this year as well.
And I do want to say, even though we have our theories and we're pretty sure about a few of them, we are not going to talk about the specific players until they are named. And because I am a firm believer, to an extent at least, in innocent until proven guilty. To an extent, I say that very, very firmly. Bad things happen, yes. And people have to be held accountable for their actions. That is a fact. But I think I would like to make it known that we are not going to mention specific players, even though we are fairly confident in a few of them.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And that's why I don't, there's even recent evidence that would lead you to point to, oh, it's, not all you have to do is cross-reference some things that have happened this year versus, oh, who was on that roster, right? And it's cross-reference some of the people who have come out and said, oh, I wasn't involved in that. And you check a couple boxes, and it's almost, it's 20 minutes of research, you can figure out at least who one, if not more, of those players are. And I agree with James that we're not going to say those names until they are, confirmed. But once they are confirmed, I genuinely, I don't want to see them playing in the NHL anymore. Like I said, Mitchell Miller was the example of, you don't just get to play in this league because you're a good hockey player. You got to be a good person. And, these things point to that not being the case for these 5 individuals. I don't think they should have the privilege of playing in this league after that. So That's my 3. A hopeful one for my team, a hopeful one for the sake of international hockey, and a hopeful one just so that something as harrowing as this.
For hockey world and the hockey culture, and for people who are always going to be cold to it. Damn right.
So that's my 3. And I know, James, obviously we talked about you being in a rush. So what do you say? Wrap up with some trivia, and then I'll send you on your way to Whistler for the night?
Well, it's not the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast without some great games. It's got to the point where I've said that so many times that I have to say it, even though it's corny, and I just want to make it cornier and cornier. Okay, I only have one for you. It is in the spirit of the golden goal in the World Juniors. So this is kind of the last World Juniors piece we'll throw out there for the 2023 tournaments. It obviously involves the 2023 tournament. Well, I'll give you 2010. So since 2010, I want you to tell me every single golden goal scorer at the World Juniors. What the hell? In overtime. That's your stipulation. Not one for every tournament, just the ones that have gone to overtime. And I'll help you out. The ones that have gone to overtime: 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016, 2022, 2023. Okay, Dylan Guenther, Dylan Guenther.
Did you slip already?
Oh wait, no. Dylan Guenther, Kent Johnson.
Attaboy. Okay. I'll give you the mulligan. I'll give you the mulligan.
I did that because you slipped on it earlier. You slipped on that one at the start of the pod, and I didn't say anything.
Oh, did I? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
And you made me doubt myself.
Okay, it is Guenther Johnson.
Yeah. And then the next one's 2018?
2016.
2016. 2016. I got nothing, dude. I got nothing.
Oh.
I got nothing. It's Finland.
It is Finland.
And I want to say it's Jesse Puljujärvi.
Oh, it's Kasperi Kapanen.
That's right.
And the wraparound on Georgiev.
Okay. All right. What's the next year?
2014.
I got nothing. Just put me in my grave, man. Put me in the coffin.
Do you want the rest of the answers?
Yeah, tell me.
Tell
me.
2014, Ristolainen versus Sweden. 2012, Zibanejad versus Russia. That was at the end of one of the just weirdest World Junior gold medal games of all time. And 2010, John Carlson ends Canada's hopes at a 6th straight World Juniors.
So I knew I wasn't going to get that one because I didn't watch that one. I hadn't seen that one. So
2010, you mean?
I didn't watch in 2010. 2010 was in my brief lull where I wasn't obsessed with hockey. The Olympics and then the Canucks run to the finals is what brought me back in.
Okay. I respect that.
Yeah, like okay. I pretty much I popped out after the Jordan Eberle stuff in the World Juniors, and I basically carried like Canucks West Coast Express era until Jordan Eberle World Juniors, stopped paying attention, and and then I hopped back in when Vancouver became the hockey hub of the world temporarily.
Got you.
All right. That's your question? That's the one?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I flubbed that. But you know what? I knew when you asked that question that I was toast. As soon as you asked it, I was like, yeah, no, this isn't going to work out. So I have one for you. It's different. It's not World Junior theme whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a game of career trajectories. I'm giving you one player.
Oh boy. So it's going to be like it's not
that bad. It's really not that bad. Okay. It's all in your lifetime.
Cool.
This player is of significance to me because I have a friend named Austin who is mind-blowingly good at Chell, to the point where it's sickening. Like, playing him is kind of painful unless he's really tired or something. It's like I've held on to every single victory I've ever had against the guy. And back in the day of GM Connected in NHL 13. Yeah. So NHL 13 had the GM Connected, where super hockey nerds could play the GM/Dynasty/franchise mode online together. And he's a Sabres fan, so he was the Sabres. He pulled a bunch of crazy trades and got Claude Giroux and Evander Kane, and he was just torching our league. And I was the Rangers in that one. And no, I was the Hurricanes in that one. I was the Hurricanes, and I traded for this player.
Okay.
And so he played in the NHL from the 06-07 season to the 17-18 season. This player's career trajectory goes Minnesota, Montreal, Boston, Tampa Bay, New York Rangers, Edmonton Oilers, Buffalo Sabres.
Okay. So 06-07.
Yeah.
Until 17-18?
Yeah.
Okay. Minnesota.
Yeah.
Montreal.
Yeah.
Boston.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And then
Rangers, Oilers, Sabres. This is a fun one. I really like this one. So at this point, for those listening, while Aidan's thinking, when they're tougher questions, We usually use the power of video editing, not for anyone to cheat, because fair play. Like we each take our L's when they happen. But he eye rolled when I said taking L's. That's perfect. So usually we edit out some of the dead space. It's is sometimes it's like 3-4 minutes, 5 minutes where we're just like, oh, this one hurts. So I don't know if Aidan's gonna get this one. He does have access to one hint. That is a thing, but I know he won't use it unless he absolutely needs it.
Yeah, you're right about that, and that might be, I'm gonna give it a little bit more thought, but I think it's gonna. I think I'm gonna need the hint. So I'll give you that heads up for you to think of what the hint
Oh, I
is
already know
gonna
what the
be.
hint is. I'm locked and
Okay.
loaded.
Okay.
Do you even have like a player in mind?
I do, but I so vividly remember this guy on a team that isn't on here. But
What's the player you have in mind?
It's I have Benoit Pouliot in mind, but
And
I don't.
what's the team he played for that you don't see, that
Well,
you don't hear there?
I don't remember him playing for Boston or Buffalo. And for some reason, I could have sworn he was a Pittsburgh Penguin.
Wow, interesting.
But that I'm not sure of. Pouliot's the only one that checks Minnesota, Montreal, Tampa, Rangers, Oilers that I can think of, and the career range would probably be around the same. Okay, I'm gonna ask for my hint. If it's Benoit Pouliot, give me the hint of you got it right. If it's not Benoit Pouliot, give me a different hint.
You got it right. He never played for the Pens.
Okay, clutch.
You get a half point on that one.
Okay, Boston, Buffalo. How many games each for those teams?
In 17-18, he played 74 games for the Sabres.
Okay.
But they were irrelevant.
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then he played 74 games in Boston as well in 11-12.
Okay.
Those were the Boston Bruins that got beat in the first round of the playoffs by Braden Holtby.
Yeah. Joel Ward overtime winner, game 7. I remember that.
Damn right.
Yeah, it's the Montreal thing that helped me out because like I hockey being a hockey fan for me started kind of 08-09. And I really vividly remember that Montreal Canadiens team because my dad was a Canucks fan, but my uncle was a huge Habs fan. So as I'm getting into it, I'm watching the Canucks with my dad, then I'm watching the Habs with my uncle. So I remember that Canadiens team so vividly with Scott Gomez, Mike Camilleri, and that group. So Pouliot, I remember Pouliot being on that team. I knew he was a Wild, and like I said, I knew he checked some of the boxes. So half points fair. Half points fair. I wasn't sure.
Your hint would have been this player went on 3 lengthy playoff runs where the team made it to at least the 3rd round. The first one being with Minnesota's affiliate, the Houston Aeros. The second one being with Montreal in 9-10. And the third one being with the Rangers in 13-14.
That would have definitely helped because I grew up with my uncle who's a huge Habs fan. I obviously paid a lot of attention to Montreal as well. So that 13-14 hit would have helped a lot because I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, I remember him being on a line for the Rangers that year in 2014 with Dominic Moore, and that was a very effective line for the New York Rangers that year. And they played the Montreal Canadiens in the Eastern Conference Final. That's why that would have kind of clicked in my head there. But that's a good one. Benoit Pouliot's a little bit of a deep cut. He's somebody who is an effective player for most of his career, but not maybe not the most memorable one to somebody who isn't a diehard. So I think that was a good question.
Yeah. He's in that list with all kinds of players like that. Like those are the ones I like to go for, like the Matt Collins and stuff like that. The guys that are memorable for nerds. But it is worth mentioning Benoit Pouliot was the 4th overall pick in 2005, the Crosby draft.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, quick impromptu. Who is 3rd? Unless you're not going to get it.
Number 3 wasn't Bobby Ryan number 2?
Yes.
Number 3 was defenseman. Was number 3 Cam Barker?
Oh, you're so close. You're so
Mm,
close because Cam Barker went third to Ovechkin and Malkin the year before.
yeah.
So it
Right.
was Ovechkin, Malkin. Number 3 was Jack Johnson.
Oh, so close.
Yeah, but
Oh,
the Barker is a great shout too, because yeah, that 2004 draft, Ovechkin first, Malkin second, then Cam Barker
I
third.
just got my damn ears mixed up. So I think that's all we got for today, unless Aidan, you have any parting thoughts?
Again, thanks if you're listening still. Thanks for listening. The World Juniors are kind of a wrap, and me and James are gonna move away from the World Junior talk, and obviously it's going to be some NHL stuff as we're going into the trade deadline, as we go into the playoff push, and then of course the final draft rankings are going to come out. You're going to get the playoffs and the CHL and all that. So it's as any hockey season is exciting. I know me and James are excited to keep talking about this. This is episode 9. James, I don't know where you had a stat for me. I don't know where you got it or what it even was, but it was a certain percentage of podcasts don't make it past episode 12. And that's why we keep
the numbers above 80%.
Okay, so that's why we keep referencing episode 12. So this week's 9, and I think me and James are very confident we're going to get to 12. So if you've been on this journey with us this whole time, thank you. Appreciate you listening in. It's been awesome for me and James to be able to connect and talk hockey. And since we've started this podcast, him and I actually haven't got to see each other. So I'm hoping we get a live show sometime in the next little while. So yeah, stay tuned. And again, I know I said this last time, we did 2 interviews and they were both awesome. So go listen to them.
Damn right. Well, I guess my parting thought is I must really care about this pod because I love Whistler and I am delaying myself driving up there to keep doing this. So that says a lot. Like this is clearly a real passion project for me. And I also want to mention that while half my screen is on Benoit Pouliot's Elite Prospects page, his brother's name is Hugo Pouliot, and I just really like that. That's just a random fact that I like to know now. Shout out Hugo Pouliot.
We're having a cool name.
Yeah, like that name's sick. If I was named Hugo, I would definitely be a different person. But yeah, I just want to thank you all for listening. Had a hell of a time doing this episode. Every episode I feel like we're looser and looser. Me and Aidan were already pretty comfortable with each other, but it's going to be a lot of fun. We're finding our niche, finding our little middle ground, and yeah, without further ado, let's cue up Gareth's awesome outro music. And thanks again to Gareth for one hell of an edit that he will do sometime soon. And let's roll that outro music. Cheers, guys.